So, with all the recent developments with Divine Travel, I wanted to highlight how your entry Nether portal can give you information to make your blind travel a little bit better. So, before we get started here, I want to quickly mention that only the first portal that you go through will give you any information about the location of the stronghold. All portals after that don't really give you any information. So there are three different types of portals that can generate on your Nether entry. We're going to start with the first one because it's the most common, and we're going to work our way down to the second and then the third one. So the first type of portal has the most strict requirements, but it's also the first one that tries to generate. So the requirements for this type of portal is that you have a 3 by 4 by 5 area, with the bottom layer being solid blocks and the top 4 layers being air blocks. And it will generate a portal like this. So portals that generate are rotated around their center point, and here I have the center point in the center of these 5 by 5 squares and marked out with a gold block. And you can see it rotates around this way in this diagram here. And you can see the air blocks requirement area also rotates with it. When the game tries to place your portal, it tries to place it in the closest block to your starting position in the Nether within this 30 to 33 by 33 square. It starts looking in the bottom corner there in the most negative axis and works its way up the z-axis and then back down and keeps scanning up. And it will find the closest spot it can and save that location. On the y-axis, it also scans top to bottom, and if it scans and finds an air block, it skips down to the next block immediately. So it finds a spot on the ground to set the portal. Here I have a diagram showing the rotation of portals. You can see we have our portal with its origin there, and if I press the button, we can get it facing a different way. This one's facing east, and this one here is facing north. This one here is facing west, and this one here is facing south. When the portal generation algorithm first starts, it picks a random direction to be the primary direction for that portal. This direction is checked first for every single location it checks for the portal to see if it's a valid location. And if it fails, it will then rotate around this circle counterclockwise to check another direction. So if we have a block here and it can't generate a south-facing portal, it will then try to place an east-facing portal and see if that's valid. And this would be a valid portal, so it could possibly save this portal. But if that one wasn't valid, it would then check north. And if that one wasn't valid, it would check west. And if it gets back to south, it will fail and it will move on to the next coordinate to check. The information for the rotation of the portal is 2 bits directly derived from the seed, and we can use this to reverse engineer a part of the seed to get the location of the stronghold. So the way you could do that is by looking at the direction your portal is currently facing, and you can save that information. But you have to make sure that the direction before it is also valid, because your direction could just be a different direction, such as we could have a south-facing portal, but our seed could be a west-facing seed, but failed to generate, so it moved on to generating south. So if the past portal could have generated, you don't know if your seed actually is facing the direction that you are seeing your portal, or if it was just rotated from the primary direction. So what information does the direction of the portal tell us about the stronghold? Here I have a diagram set up to show us the direction of the portal, showed with the yellow block there, relative to the obsidian. So here we have a south-facing portal, and the green area shows where a stronghold can spawn in the rings, and the red area shows where a stronghold can't spawn. So if we're at our portal and we have a south-facing portal, we can see that our stronghold region is going to be a -x, +z. Or if we look here, we have this region here and this region here, but it's much harder to figure out these regions because it's not perfectly aligned to a quadrant like the first region that generates is. If we come over here and we generate an east-facing portal, we can see again, it's just to the right-hand side of us on the diagonal. Same thing with the north-facing portal, on the right-hand side with the diagonal, and our west-facing portal on the diagonal. So how do we figure out the direction our portal is facing? With north-south versus east-west portals, it's relatively easy to tell them apart if it's facing either north-south or east or west. But telling a north portal from a south portal is very, very difficult unless you know how to. So the way you can figure it out is by looking at the coordinate that you enter in. So if we look here, we enter at 452, and that should put us out at approximately 0 and 6 in the nether. So that will put the origin at 0 and 6. So if I get a gold block here, that means that this block here should be at 0 and 6. If it's on, and that's the bottom left-hand corner, and that would be a southward facing portal. If it's on the bottom right, that means we're looking at it backwards, and because it must be on the bottom left, because that's where the origin is. So this means it would be a north-facing portal if this coordinate lined up with where we entered in the nether. And there's a few easy tricks to calculate the number. If you want, you can divide your x and z by 8, but a much quicker method is by multiplying your chunk cord by 2, and then figuring out if this number here on your chunk is greater than or equal to 8, or less than 8. So you multiply this by 2, so we have 0 and 6, and these are both less than 8, so we add 0 for both of them. Whereas if we come over here, we have 0 and 3, so 0 and 6. This one's greater than 8, so it's a 1, and this one's less than 8, so it's a 0. And that means we add this 1 to this one here, so we'd have 1, 6 on our coordinate in the nether. You do have to be careful, though, on the side you enter in the overworld, because if you cross the center of the chunk, it can change from a 7 to an 8, and you will have an off by 1 error. And that will trick you into believing that your origin's on the opposite side when it isn't, because you read your coordinates on one side but entered on the other. So if we look at these rings here, we can see distant from our enter portal position, what I have marked out with this obsidian. And as we get further and further away from it on the bottom side becomes more and more flat. Till when we get to the very bottom here, it is very, very flat. Meaning that if we were to extend it out a bit further, this block would actually end up being a lot closer to that portal than this block here. So how can that negatively affect us? So that can negatively affect us because if we are looking for our coordinates to line up perfectly, we want our portal to be right here. But if it snaps to here, it's going to end up facing this way, and no matter what, and because that will get us the closest block for our origin here, and that will make it so our portals force that direction. So because of this effect, we want to make our enter portal a lot lower down in the world than the surface in the overworld, because the surface of the nether is a lot lower down than the surface of the overworld. So what is the second type of portal? The second type of portal is very, very similar to the first type of portal, except it is only 1 wide instead of 3. And we can see here, it just makes the portal frame. You can see here we have the rotation set up for it. And it's very similar to the other one without the requirement of air in front of it, which makes it a bit harder to tell if the last coordinate was a valid one. Here I have set up the blocks that need to be valid for an east portal, or for a north portal, or a west portal, or a south portal. The last type of portal is one I'm sure we're all familiar with, and it is the type of portal that generates in the air or inside of a wall. So this portal only generates if all other types of portals fail. This portal's minimum Y coordinate is at 70, and its maximum is at whatever dimension's height. So in the overworld, that is at the top of the world, but in the nether, that is 128, making it so you can't be put on top of the nether roof. This portal will replace any blocks it comes in contact with, including bedrock, to build itself, and it can generate anywhere and will forcibly generate no matter what if it can't place any of the other 2 types of portals. So we're going to move on to a few demos here. So we're going to generate a series of worlds, and I'm going to show you the detecting which direction the portal's facing in action. So we're going to dig straight down here because we want to enter very low to get a better coordinate. So we're going to enter at about here. And we're going to get our tools together. And we're going to take down our coordinate right here. So we are at chunk 0, 0. So that means we just have to worry about the top number of our chunk block, which is going to be a 1 and a 1. So we should expect to come out with our origin at 1, 1. And we can see that it didn't do that. And we can see that we have a westward facing portal, but we don't know if it meant to be facing north or east or south. So this portal has given us no information here. So we're going to try our second portal here. This one's at 1413 with a 0 and a 1 on the chunk cord. So if we multiply it and add that together, we have 28 and 27. And this one also didn't come out what we want, but this portal could be facing south or north. So if we rotate this portal, so if we assume this portal is facing south, the origin right here, then if we were to rotate the portal like this, we could see that it would also be valid if it was one earlier. So it might be a south-facing portal. But if the origin was here, it could have been a east-facing portal too. So we don't have no clue what direction this portal is intending to be facing, because our coordinates in the overworld did not line up with our ones in the Nether. These coordinates should put us out at 2110. And here we are at 2110. So we can see this portal is not facing south, and it is facing north because it needs the blocks here. So the origin should be in the bottom left-hand corner. So if we look at it here, our portal couldn't have been rotated this way because it would need blocks there to be able to build off that. So we don't know if this portal is a north-facing portal because it could have just as well been facing east or south or west. This portal should put us out at about 7 and negative 28. So if we go through, we come out here, and here is a 7 and negative 28. You can really check really fast by looking at the right-hand side here. So we know that the bottom left-hand corner is the origin here, meaning that the portal is facing west. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments, but that's the end of the video. So have a good day.